Hey, 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 hey. Trundle Talks, it's Trundle Talks, it's Trundle Talks, it's Trundle Talks.
Welcome, Sergio. Welcome, Bruno, to Trundle Talks. We are very grateful that you guys could join us today. Today's topic, we are going to have a conversation around automation. We're going to talk about Xray as an add-on. We're going to talk about automation and a bunch of other stuff around it. So before we begin, Sergio and Bruno, could you give a quick introduction about yourselves?
So I'm Sergio. I live in Portugal, as Bruno also, and I was a former product owner and product manager for Xray, which now is something that Bruno is focused on. So currently I'm working more with the testing community, trying to understand more about testing and also trying to preach a bit about how we can improve testing, including test automation, always having in mind the different perspectives that we as testers and people delivering value to persons that we can bring to the table. And that's it.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Bruno Conde, and I'm product manager of Xray, just like Sergio said. I've been involved with Xray for about 9 years now, and both me and Sergio were there at the beginning. And that's basically my life currently. So I'm responsible for bringing the best features that I can to the product.
Great. So let me start off with a very common question that DevOps is or has been a buzzword in the industry for quite some time. What do you think teams can do to make it more than just a buzzword?
I can start answering this one. I think, well, in fact, it's not just about DevOps. It's also about AI, machine learning, and big data. Bitcoins, everything. You see many buzzwords out there, and sometimes people like to put those buzzwords in their products or in their blogs just because you will get some CEO out of it. Let me start by talking a bit about what DevOps is and what is not in my perspective, and also using some references for that. I think that DevOps is really a culture, a mindset, and a set of practices and principles that enable, and let me quote here, product owners, development, QA, IT, operations, and InfoSec work together, not only to help each other, but also ensure that the overall organization succeeds. So it's like an overall kind of goal. By working towards a common goal, exactly, they enable fast flow of planned work into production, such as performing tens, hundreds, or even thousands of code deploys per day, while achieving world-class stability, reliability, availability, and security. So this is like one definition that we see out there, and I think there are 3 principles that you need to follow in order to achieve the desired outcomes, like 3 different ways: flow, feedback, and continuous learning and experimentation. Flow, which accelerates the delivery of work from development to operations and in the end to customers. Feedback, which enable us to create, let's say, more systems that are safer to work with. So feedback is really important because it helps us shape our decision. Okay, so having these short feedback loops. And another aspect, another principle is continuous learning and experimentation, because we need to really foster this really high trust culture and a kind of scientific approach to organization improvement. So we need to take risks in order to improve what we do. And this is a bit about what DevOps is, but sometimes people have a different misunderstanding. Sometimes people think that DevOps is something else. For example, they think that DevOps is like a tool or a set of tools, and it's not. Or sometimes people think that DevOps is a process, a methodology, and it's also not that. And you can also see that sometimes people put like a stamp in their CB. I'm a DevOps. What is that? It's not a role. It's not a tool. It's not something that you can put in the top of your head like a stamp.
Yeah.
And it's not really a task or a set of tasks. And it's not just about having the developers and the operations within the same team. It's actually more than that. And I do see many times people referring to this DevOps as a set of tools or as a role, and that's not it, as I mentioned. So for me, it's about really this true ownership of what of the value that we provide when we build some features. So it's sometimes we see people just building a feature and they move it to the ops team or to someone that will put it to production. And here we are talking about true ownership of the code. So that requires that we really collaborate within the team, and that we also learn continuously, because all the process, all that we do, we can always improve it. Okay. Right. So that also requires to really take care of getting things to production in, let's say, in an easy way and a systematic way, and also look at the real value that is provided by our software while it's in production. So what is that? So we need to measure what is happening in production. We need to observe what is happening in production. So we need to continuously monitor what is happening there, so we can actually act really fast. And no matter that, if that means that we need to push like a fix to production quite fast, but it also means that we need to have like easy ways to, for example, to roll back, or for example, some way of having like a feature flagging to easily disable that feature or enable it as we wish. Right. So all of this, of course, requires tooling and also infrastructure tooling, but it's not really just about the tooling. And also, whatever tooling we choose to help us, it's important that this tooling is not awkward to the development team. So everyone should be able to use these tools. Everyone should be able to monitor what is happening in production. Everyone should have like an easy way to push code to production. So if you see, for example, let me give you a concrete example. If you see a typo in some, let's say you have Trundle, and someone wrote it like scramble, and you see, okay, that's a bug. Someone was thinking about whatever. So this can be easily fixed. I just need to change that piece of code. That's that piece of word. How can I do that? So it should be as easy as going there in the code, do a commit, and putting that to production should be very straightforward. Right. And knowing what is happening in production should also be straightforward. So DevOps is all of that. About it, of course, it requires this true collaboration within the team, because we need to have improved knowledge. We need to continuously improve in not just on the toolings, but how we look at the software. And that's my perspective.
Thank you for that, Sergio. And I like that you mentioned that when you started, you talked about it's a mindset, because we very frequently use the same definition, or more or less the same exact examples or the phrases that you use when you're talking about agile ways of working, when you're talking about teams being much more independent, much more self-sufficient, and being able to push code to production, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Not using X amount of tools, not using so many methodologies, or just ticking off boxes. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now let me bring the conversation a little away from DevOps and towards the automation piece of it that you talked about. So how do you think test case automation, I'm taking one piece out of from the entire process when we talk about, the automation side of it. So how do you think test case automation can, blend into the ways of working for teams?
Take that. So I think it's a very important, test case automation is a very important part for software teams in general, and of course for agile teams, because it allows to provide a short feedback loop of problems and everything that happens within the development lifecycle. Okay, so let's talk about an example. So let's imagine a developer that is coding the next big feature in a given product, and he is ready to do a commit. He is ready to create a pull request with that implementation, right? So if you have your automated tests executing in that moment, and if you find any problem, you are able to fix that immediately. Okay, so this is something that will really, in what automated tests can really help within an agile team. If you have those implemented and you have automated tests in place, no matter if these are automated tests, just like regression tests from previous releases, or if they are really automated tests for this sprint, the thing is, when you code a new feature, your automated tests will execute and you'll provide you immediate feedback on how your feature will interact with all of the other features in the product. And of course, if you find any kind of bug or problem, you can immediately fix it and bring value like that. Okay, so I think it's very important for that. Of course, this is important for all kinds of tests, not only functional tests. For instance, performance tests, it's almost the same thing, right? So if you find that your feature is degrading the performance because the automated tests are really telling you that when you created your pull request, you can immediately act upon that problem as well. Okay, so I think it's very, very important having automated tests in this context.
If I may add also on top of that as Bruno mentioned, it's really valuable, for example, to have that kind of feedback, for example, on pull requests. And even, for example, in my own personal blog that I host on GitHub and distort this code, every blog post that I make has like a pull request where the functional tests run, a set of basic functional tests, but also this kind of non-functional tests that Bruno was mentioning. So I can have like insights on the performance, on also on the SEO and other aspects that are also important. And then I can decide whether I want to merge that code or should I look at once again back to my post. And even if it's a post, someone will read it using some device. Maybe I'm messing up with the mobile, let's say with a mobile HTML kind of a layout. Maybe I'm adding just large image that will affect the performance. So I can easily act upon that. And another aspect is on exploratory testing. So we were talking about test automation as a means to provide this valuable feedback, and it also frees the team to perform exploratory testing, which is crucial to look at the parts that we don't cover on the automated tests, to go after the unknowns and the missing gaps. So we gain time also. We reduce some costs. We also gain time in order to perform this more human based testing that is so crucial in order to understand how our product works.
Now, since you already talked about it, let me dive a little bit into Xray. So how does Xray bring traceability when it comes to, because that is one question that you get asked a lot, the requirements that you have originally got from your vendors or your clients, and the defects that you get. How does Xray bring traceability into the picture?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think traceability is really very important for test management tool, of course, because and this is an area where Xray really excels. Okay, has been a goal for us since the beginning. Okay, and this is something that I think we do very well. Okay, we have reports that basically tell you where you can go from the user story, and not only see the defects for the user story. You can just see, okay, I have this user story. How many tests do I have covering the user story? I have these ones over here. How many executions I have for this specific version that I'm looking right now? I have these executions. How many defects I had from those executions? So within a report that is provided by Xray, you can immediately see this kind of traceability from the requirements to the tests, the executions, and to the defects, all of that. Okay, and because Xray uses issue types, you can immediately jump from the user story that you are seeing. Perhaps the user story is not okay in terms of testing. There is one of the tests is failing, perhaps. You can go into the failing test, you can go into the fail execution, and you can see the defects right there. Okay, and not only issues, right? So because we are in Jira, of course, if you'd like to see code, you can also do that, right? So if you have a failing user story, you can just go to the user story and see the code and see traceability for that, and even for the test case. If this is an automated test case, you can also go into Xray. It's an issue, you can track where the test case is stored, and you can track the code. Okay. So besides the traceability, I think it's another part that is very important to talk about is the requirement status that Xray provides. So one thing is providing the traceability, where you can see the user story is connected with these test cases. These test cases are connected with the results and the defects. But Xray can provide you much more, can provide you a level of abstraction where within the report, you can see, you can ask this question, give me a list, or how is my project doing for this version in terms of testing? And Xray will give you just a list of all the requirements for that specific version and all the status for the requirements, all the statuses, okay? For each requirement, you can see, okay, this requirement is okay in terms of testing. This is not okay. This is okay. Not okay means that some of the tests are failing, okay? So I think this is very important. And this, of course, goes back to the DevOps topic that you are talking about here, because with the given report, you can immediately know the status and if you are ready to do a release or not. Okay. Yeah. And besides, of course, all test types matter for this report, right? It doesn't matter if they are manual tests or automated tests or exploratory tests.
Exactly.
All of these tests are bring together into the user stories, and Xray will calculate all of the statuses for the user stories automatically.
Yeah, exactly. Bruno touched on an important point, is that you can do this traceability analysis no matter the approach to testing that you follow, no matter if you are doing the exploratory testing, test automation, or traditional test cases. And also you can then analyze the test results for a specific environment, like for a specific browser. And that's really important, because sometimes you can have just a problem in one of the browsers or in one of the mobile devices, and the traceability in Xray can actually go to that level. So we can actually deep dive into traceability and to coverage.
Great. With all these advancements in tools, in these add-ons that help automation, that help the DevOps, do you think or do you feel that there's a decline in the skill level of a tester, or do you feel it has only complemented?
I don't think, let's say, that most of the work is done by tools, and most of the work, and I'm talking about testing work, I think the tools are valuable for sure to provide like the systematic ways of getting things done, and also while doing so, avoiding that humans perform those kind of repetitive tasks. But also tools are important to amplify existing human skills. They really don't replace humans. So that's, for me, it's really important. They are not eager to replace humans, but
For now.
For now. Well, if you're probably like a taxi driver, maybe you'll be replaced on that by having automated Uber or something like that. But the critical thinking is something that only exists on humans. So I think that a tester will always be needed, because the tester has this kind of unique skills. I call it the backpack of knowledge that can be used to uncover these unknowns and the gaps that the tools cannot do. And the tester can collaborate with the devs and the ops. So software can have like better testability, and the software can then be easily monitored and observed in production. This requires true collaboration. A tester can now use observability tools out there. There are a bunch of them that can help answer questions that we haven't thought about it. Those questions, they cannot be hard-coded in test automation or in scripts, because we haven't thought about it. So that requires the tester to talk with devs and ops. So also the right kind of events are available, so they can be analyzed later on. And it's also about operability, being able to easily operate the software, to easily, let's say, deploy, restart, roll back, or even enable or disable the features that I was talking about earlier. So all of this requires that you have a tester to figure out what is important, what is relevant. And this is something that a tester cannot really achieve these goals by him or herself. The tester needs to collaborate with the team, within the DevOps team. So the tools can be used, let's say, more wisely and more effectively to gain insights about all these different quality criteria that may matter for you, that define the true value for what you are delivering. So I don't think that tools will replace humans in this part, because here we are talking about many different aspects, namely the collaboration aspect.
Yeah.
So that's one skill. Communication is really a skill that we should look in testers. Besides critical thinking and all sorts of also technical skills. So nowadays we also need testers to have like technical skills. So the testers can go actually in the scripts or in the deployment scripts or in whatever scripts or tools that you have. Testers shouldn't be afraid to touch that. Testers should also try to understand a bit, as much as possible, to understand code, because if you do have more, let's say, knowledge about the architecture, the tools that you use, also the code eventually, you can expose the risks. And that's one thing that only the tester can do.
Right. Thank you so much, Sergio and Bruno, for that. I think that's the time that we had for today. We are very glad that we were able to pick your brains. We do recommend Xray add-on. Go check it out on the Atlassian Marketplace. And if you have any questions, we can always have Bruno and Sergio join us again for any.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invite.
Hey, hey.